The rain didn't just fall that night, it attacked, like the sky itself had turned against her. Sheets of water slammed into the muddy ground, drowning the fields, soaking through worn fabric, and turning hope into something fragile and fleeting. Clara Bennett stood in the middle of it all, her hands trembling, her breath shallow, watching the small group of cattle she had left huddle helplessly under a broken wooden frame that barely resembled shelter anymore. Thunder cracked so loudly it felt like the earth was splitting apart, and in that moment, Clara realized something terrifying: if she couldn't protect them tonight, she would lose everything she had left in this world. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of one human being changing another's life, take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this matter because they remind us who we can be. Clara hadn't always lived like this. There was a time, not too long ago, when her life felt stable, when her small ranch in rural Montana was filled with laughter, purpose, and the quiet satisfaction of hard work. But life has a way of unraveling people in ways they never expect. After losing her husband, Marcus Bennett, to a sudden illness, everything began to fall apart piece by piece. Medical bills consumed their savings. Repairs on the ranch were delayed, then ignored. And the once strong fences and shelters slowly gave in to time, weather, and neglect. By the time the heavy storms of that season arrived, Clara was already barely holding on. The cattle she had left weren't just animals, they were her last chance to survive, her last connection to the life she once shared with Marcus. Losing them would mean losing the ranch, and losing the ranch meant losing the only place that still felt like home. The rain soaked her hair, her clothes clinging to her skin as she struggled to drag pieces of wood toward the broken shelter, trying to create some kind of barrier against the storm. Her fingers were numb, her body exhausted, but she refused to stop. Every drop of rain felt like a reminder of her failure, every gust of wind like a warning that she wasn't strong enough to keep going. Cars didn't pass through that dirt road often, especially not in weather like this. But through the roar of thunder, Clara suddenly heard something different, the low hum of an engine. At first, she thought she imagined it. But then headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the chaos around her. A pickup truck slowed to a stop a few yards away. The engine idled for a moment before the driver's door opened, and a tall figure stepped out into the storm. His boots hit the muddy ground with a steady, deliberate weight, as if he had done this 1,000 times before. His name was Jacob Turner. Jacob was known in that part of Montana as a man who kept to himself. A rancher with miles of land, a reputation for resilience, and a past no one seemed to fully understand. People said he had built everything he had from nothing, that he worked harder than anyone else, and that he rarely got involved in other people's problems. But that night, something made him stop. He took one look at Clara, soaked, exhausted, standing in the middle of a losing battle. And something shifted in his expression. He didn't ask questions right away. He didn't offer empty sympathy. He simply walked closer, his eyes scanning the broken shelter, the terrified cattle, and the woman who was clearly on the edge of collapse. Clara noticed him, her heart racing with a mix of fear and desperation. She wasn't used to asking for help anymore. Life had taught her that most people walked away when things got hard. But Jacob didn't walk away. He studied the situation for a long moment, rain dripping from the brim of his hat, before finally speaking the words that would change everything. "Come with me." At first, Clara didn't understand. The words felt too simple, too sudden, too impossible. She hesitated, glancing back at her cattle, her mind racing with questions she didn't have the energy to ask. Trust didn't come easily anymore. But there was something in Jacob's voice, something steady, something certain, that made her pause. He didn't rush her. He didn't pressure her. Instead, he moved toward the cattle, assessing them with the practiced eye of someone who knew exactly what needed to be done. Without waiting for permission, he began guiding them, his calm presence cutting through their panic. Clara found herself following him, almost without realizing it. The drive to Jacob's ranch felt surreal. The storm raged on, but inside the truck, there was a strange kind of silence. Not uncomfortable, not forced, just quiet. Safe. When they arrived, Clara's breath caught in her throat. Jacob's ranch was everything hers used to be, and more. Strong fences, sturdy barns, warm lights glowing through the windows. It wasn't just a place, it was a reminder of what was possible. Jacob wasted no time. He helped guide her cattle into a large, secure barn, where they were finally protected from the storm. The sound of rain hitting the roof replaced the chaos of the open sky, and for the first time that night, Clara felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. Her legs gave out before she could stop them, and she sank to the ground, overwhelmed by exhaustion and emotion. She didn't cry loudly. The tears came quietly, slipping down her face as the weight of everything she had been carrying finally began to lift. Jacob didn't say much. He simply stood nearby, giving her space while making sure everything was taken care of. There was a quiet understanding in his actions, a kind of kindness that didn't need to be explained. Over the next few days, something unexpected began to happen. Jacob didn't just offer shelter for her cattle. He offered help rebuilding what she had lost. He showed her how to reinforce her fences, how to repair her structures, how to manage what little resources she had left more effectively. But more than that, he gave her something she didn't even realize she needed. He gave her hope. Clara began to see herself differently, not as someone who had failed, but as someone who had survived. Someone who was still standing, even after everything life had thrown at her. And Jacob, in his own quiet way, began to change too. Helping Clara reminded him of something he had buried long ago, the part of himself that believed in connection, in community, in the idea that people could still show up for each other when it mattered most. If this story is touching your heart so far, take a moment right now to comment the word kindness below. It helps this message reach more people who need it. Weeks passed, and Clara's ranch slowly began to come back to life. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't easy, but it was hers again. Stronger. More resilient. The night the rain finally stopped for good, Clara stood outside, looking at the sky as the clouds parted and the first stars appeared. It felt like a new beginning. Jacob stood a few feet away, his hands in his pockets, watching quietly. Neither of them needed to say much. The silence between them was filled with everything that had changed. Clara had come close to losing everything. But in her darkest moment, someone had stopped. Someone had cared. Someone had said, "Come with me." And that had been enough to change her entire life. So if this story moved you, if it reminded you that even the smallest act of kindness can save someone's world, don't scroll away.